Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
For the better part of a year, I feel like the entire decentralized ecosystem, and I mean everyone from the VCs down to the everyday users, has been just buzzing about the promise of the Keeta network.
Oh, absolutely. It hasn't just been a buzz. It's been more like a roar.
Right. And
Yeah.
we're talking about a brand new layer one blockchain that didn't just, casually mention scalability.
Wow.
They came out and essentially announced a fundamental rewrite of the laws of distributed computing.
That's precisely right. I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
Keeta didn't just sort of enter the conversation.
Yeah.
They demanded attention.
Yeah.
They did that by positioning themselves as the singular, definitive answer to the blockchain trilemma.
The classic
A
trilemma.
classic one achieving decentralization, security, and scalability all at the same time. Their entire strategy, their whole pitch was built on setting these just astronomical, headline-grabbing benchmarks for speed and capacity.
And when you make claims that soar that high, they naturally generate a proportionate amount of skepticism.
They have to.
And they demand intense, verifiable scrutiny. So our mission today in this deep dive is to cut through all of that noise,
All of it.
all the aspirational white papers, the marketing gloss, the pre-launch hype, all of it. We want to answer one single, unambiguous question for you, the listener.
And that question is?
What is the proven, verifiable truth about Keeta's speed per second, its transactions per second, after its official mainnet launch?
And to do that, we've built this deep dive on a stack of really critical sources. We've compiled the official pre-launch Keeta claims, all the technical documentation from their stress test,
The lab stuff.
And most critically, we are relying on real-time analytics data straight from highly respected third-party validators,
Specifically.
ChainSpect.
Yeah.
And this recent post-launch data, this provides the unimpeachable backbone of our entire analysis today.
And here's the initial hook. This is the sheer kind of mind-bending paradox we are about to decode for you.
It really is a paradox.
Keeta's engineering claim, so the proven potential of the network, involves speeds measured comfortably in the millions of transactions per second.
Millions, with an M.
But the actual operational data, the numbers collected since the mainnet actually went live, reveals this dramatic, almost unbelievable gap between that advertised potential and the current confirmed real-world usage.
It's a disconnect that I think defines the entire current state of this project. It's everything.
So before we can even touch the data that paints the operational reality, we really have to spend sufficient time understanding the monumental claims that earned Keeta its reputation in the first place.
You have to. You have to understand the promise before you can understand the reality.
Exactly. We need to analyze the specific structural capabilities they demonstrated in the lab. So what was it that defined Keeta's marketed superiority, and how did they go about proving those theoretical maximums?
Well, their superiority was purely defined by engineered capacity.
Yeah.
It's all about the engine. They weren't satisfied with just, incremental improvements over established L1s like Ethereum or Solana.
This wasn't a 10% or 20% improvement they were selling.
Not at all. They were aiming to solve congestion permanently, for good. And this extreme focus is what attracted that immense initial capital and, frankly, the intense academic curiosity.
And the raw numbers Keeta put forth were, there's no other word for it. They were staggering. So let's start with the theoretical maximums. What was the absolute ceiling Keeta officially claimed for its novel network design?
The official stated theoretical maximum TPS was 10 million transactions per second.
10 million.
10 million. Now, we really should just pause to absorb that number for a moment.
Yeah.
This isn't just, double or triple the speed of competitors. This is an order of magnitude beyond what any major decentralized network had ever reliably demonstrated.
Ever.
But the speed claim was about more than just the raw volume. It was intricately linked to the speed of confirmation.
Right. And it's so critical to distinguish between throughput and settlement speed. Because volume is, it's useless if your transaction takes 20 minutes to actually confirm.
It's completely useless.
And the sources detail a remarkable finality time of just 400 milliseconds.
400 milliseconds. To frame this for you, a professional sprinter can cover maybe 4 meters in that time.
Wow.
This is a speed that is literally faster than the sensory processing time of the human brain. Keeta was promising true cryptographic finality, the point where a transaction is irreversible, permanently recorded, in a fraction of a second.
That, if you can deliver it consistently, is a complete game changer.
It changes everything.
And this rapid finality was paired with an even more radical claim. 0-second instant confirmation on the blockchain itself. Let's unpack this technical nuance because I think this is often confusing for people who aren't deep in the weeds, but it's the core of Keeta's user experience pitch.
It really is.
How does a system achieve 0-second confirmation if the finality takes 400 milliseconds?
So this is where their unique consensus mechanism comes into play. The 400 milliseconds, that represents the time required for the network's whole consensus protocol. So, likely involving multiple rounds of node agreement and cryptographic stamping to achieve full, irreversible settlement across all the decentralized nodes.
So that's the hard cryptographic commitment, the point of no return.
That's the point of no return. Yes.
So then if that takes 400 meters, what on earth does 0-second confirmation mean?
It means that from the user's perspective, the transaction is instantly accepted and registered by the nearest node. It enters a reliable pre-consensus state immediately.
Okay, an analogy might help here.
Think of it like walking into a bank and handing the teller a check. The teller accepts it, that's your 0-second confirmation, and you know the process has started, even though the money hasn't actually cleared the bank's central system yet.
Which is the 400 millisecond finality.
Exactly. Keeta's claim suggested they had optimized the mechanism to just completely remove that perceived lag, that waiting period that plagues older systems, making the entire experience feel truly instantaneous for the end user. They designed the architecture to front-load all the security checks.
And that structural narrative, the complete removal of perceived latency, that's the foundation of their entire pre-launch excitement.
It is.
They were selling a network where transactional delay was conceptually impossible, creating an infrastructure designed to run like a synchronous global database.
Exactly. And proving this potential required pushing beyond just theoretical modeling into actual physical stress testing.
Which brings us to the moment where the theory became a quantifiable fact. The stress test apex.
The big one.
That moment was in June of 2025, and the resulting number became the gold standard for all of their claims, 11.2 million TPS.
11.2 million.
And the fact that they actually exceeded their 10 million theoretical maximum, that was huge news.
It was more than huge. It validated their incredibly complex architectural choices. But the real story here isn't just the number 11.2 million. It's the specific, highly credible conditions under which that number was achieved.
Right. Context is everything.
Everything. The test conditions were meticulously engineered to lend massive credibility to the final result.
And a major element of that credibility came from their partner in the test. Tell us why the involvement of Google's Spanner engineering team was so critical to this verification.
Okay, so Spanner is Google's globally distributed database service. It is, a legend in the space.
Right.
Its primary revolutionary challenge is maintaining strong external consistency and transactional integrity across a massive, globally dispersed architecture.
So if Keeta is trying to build a global, decentralized ledger that maintains perfect consistency while handling massive volume,
Then collaborating with a team that literally cracked global consistency at web scale is an enormous vote of confidence.
it's the ultimate validation.
It is. It signaled that Keeta was focused on solving the exact same high-stakes, real-world database problems that, trillion-dollar companies face every day.
So it wasn't just about borrowing their infrastructure for the test.
Oh, no, not at all. It was about validating their entire approach to distributed consensus against the best in the world. They were subjecting their internal systems and assumptions to an external authority known for solving this very problem.
And this number wasn't just a joint claim from Keeta and Google. It was independently verified.
Yes, and that's the other crucial piece. The sources confirm it was verified by the third-party validator, Chainspect.
So what exactly was Chainspect monitoring to confirm that 11.2 million TPS was genuine? It's not just about counting, right?
Not at all. Chainspect wasn't just counting hashes on a screen. They were monitoring the structural health of the entire network under extreme load.
Which includes what, specifically?
That includes validating that block finality, that 400 meters target, was being consistently met. It includes confirming that node synchronization didn't break down under the deluge of traffic. And it includes checking for any dropped or failed transactions.
So making sure the network didn't just get fast by getting sloppy.
Precisely. They ensured that the network maintained its security and its integrity while it was achieving that peak throughput. They essentially audited the network's performance metrics in real time.
Let's lean into the context here, though, because this is the pivot point for understanding the entire situation later on. This test happened in a controlled synthetic environment.
Yes.
And that phrase needs a much deeper explanation. What did that environment actually look like specifically, and why isn't it the same as real life?
A synthetic environment is, well, it's a perfect world. It's mathematically optimized for success.
A laboratory.
A perfect laboratory. In this case, it was a manufactured reality designed for one purpose and one purpose only.
Hmm.
To push the network's internal processing capacity to its absolute limit.
So what does that mean in practice?
It means they ensured the transactions were structurally simple. We're likely talking about simple token transfers or near-zero computation smart contracts. This removes all the complexities of real-world usage, like network congestion from different parts of the world, varying latency from different geographies, or complex resource-intensive contract executions that can slow things down.
So the network wasn't, running complex dApps or dealing with a popular NFT mint.
Yeah.
It was just running a pure, raw performance test.
Correct. The sources detail that the network generated over 25 billion transactions during this single test run.
25 billion.
That's not organic activity. That is a sustained engineered tsunami of data designed to maximize throughput and confirm the architecture's raw capacity.
And the scale of the simulation itself was impressive too, not just the number of transactions.
Absolutely. Those 25 billion transactions originated from more than 30 million unique accounts.
Okay, so this wasn't just one massive script running on a few supernodes.
No, not at all. This simulated immense, widespread, decentralized activity. It proved the system could handle tens of millions of actors hitting it simultaneously. But, and this is the critical part,
Go on.
all of these actors were acting in a pre-programmed, optimized, and predictable way.
So if we synthesize this entire data point, the 11.2 million TPS is not a forecast of what we should expect.
No, it's not a forecast. It is a measure of potential.
It's the ceiling.
It is the absolute maximum structural capacity. It definitively proves that the network's engineering works under extreme manufactured duress. If we connect this to the bigger picture, this number shows what the network can handle, given perfect ideal conditions.
I like a good analogy.
It is the maximum capacity of a magnificent brand new highway built with 10 million lanes. It is not, however, a measure of how many cars are actually driving on it today.
That analogy, the one of structural capacity versus actual utilization, is absolutely the key to understanding this next phase of our deep dive.
It's everything.
We've established that the Keeta Highway is structurally capable of handling 11.2 million cars per second. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the core of your request for you, the listener.
This is the moment of truth.
Let's look at the data after the rubber hit the road. When Keeta launched the mainnet and opened that massive highway to the public.
We move from the academic proof of concept to the undeniable, verifiable operational reality.
So let's set the timeline first. The Keeta mainnet officially launched on September 22, 2025.
Correct.
The data we are analyzing today reflects the network's performance approximately 2 months following that launch.
Which is, a sufficient window to track initial adoption and see if there's any sustained usage.
And this launch was preceded by just massive expectation.
Understatement of the year.
Keeta had deliberately built up significant anticipation, and you can see that evidenced by the impressive scale of their testnet ecosystem. They gave the market every single reason to believe that a huge wave of users was just waiting to jump immediately onto the mainnet.
They really did. The testnet data, looking back on it now, it looks almost like a guarantee of success.
The numbers are pretty wild. The sources noted 235 million wallets with non-zero balances in that simulated environment before the launch.
235 million. It's a staggering potential user base.
But the more important number,
That's the active users, yes.
over 42 million wallets had actually completed transactions on that testnet. 42 million active participants.
And those figures, they set the expectation that mainnet traffic would be immense, that it would be rivaling established layer ones from day one.
Because you had tens of millions of users who had already engaged with the network structure, they'd proven out the user flow.
The assumption was they were ready to go.
Okay, let's dive into the cold, hard post-launch numbers. This is the truth. Simple and unambiguous, straight from ChainSpec's real-time monitoring of the live chain. What is the current actual sustained speed of the Keeta network?
The true sustained throughput, recorded by ChainSpec in a recent 1-hour snapshot, is a very precise figure.
And that figure is?
0.02 transactions per second, TXS.
Let's just stop and sit with that number for a second.
We have to.
We need to hammer this home for the listener. We moved from a proven, validated capacity of 11.2 million TPS in the lab.
Million.
to an actual current operational rate of 0.02 TXS in the real world.
0.02.
That is not just a statistical variance. That represents a near total failure to materialize user demand.
It is, without a doubt, the most critical data point of this entire deep dive, and we absolutely must translate what 0.02 TXS means in practical human terms,
Please do.
especially when you compare it to their 400 millisecond finality claim. If a network is processing 0.02 transactions per second, it means that on average, the time that elapses between one transaction and the very next transaction is 50 seconds.
50 seconds.
50 seconds.
50 seconds of elapsed time for a single transaction to process on the network. When the theoretical finality time was 400 milliseconds and the perceived user experience was supposed to be 0-second confirmation, the difference is just, it's shocking.
It is a profound technical and market disappointment. We were looking at a 125,000-fold difference between the promised speed of confirmation, the engineering ideal, and the current transactional frequency, which is driven by actual demand.
And this is the verifiable, unambiguous truth about the network's current operational speed post-minute.
It is.
And the data gets even starker when ChainSpec looks at shorter time frames. What did the real-time monitoring show for the maximum TPS over a sustained 100-block period recently?
In that 100-block snapshot, the maximum recorded throughput was actually 0 TSS.
Zero.
Zero.
Okay, that requires serious elaboration. That doesn't mean the chain is down or broken, but what does it mean for you, the listener?
It means that for significant sustained stretches of time, we're talking potentially several minutes or even longer, absolutely nothing of consequence was moving on the chain.
Nothing.
No user deposits, no contract interactions, no token swaps, no economic activity. The blockchain was successfully producing blocks, so it's validating the structure, but those blocks were empty, or they contain only internal, non-user-generated transactions. It demonstrates that user-driven transaction flow is, at best, sporadic and, for long periods, entirely absent. The network is, for all intents and purposes, fundamentally idling.
And that idling just confirms the low sustained rate. To solidify this picture of non-usage, let's look at the cumulative usage statistics since the mainnet went live in September. What is the total transaction volume processed in 2 months?
In the approximately 2 months following that September 22nd launch, the network processed a total cumulative volume of 905,000 transactions.
Less than 1 million transactions.
Yeah.
In 60 days, let's really analyze the implications of that 905,000 total volume figure, especially when we consider the anticipation.
Right.
We just confirmed they had over 42 million wallets actively transacting on the testnet, setting the stage for huge volume.
And this is the absolute crux of the market adoption challenge. Let's do the math here just to put this minimal usage into perspective.
Let's do it.
If you take 905,000 total transactions over a 60-day period, that averages out to approximately 15,083 transactions per day.
15,000 transactions a day.
Per day.
To put that into context for you, established Layer 1 networks often process that volume in minutes.
Sometimes in seconds during peak congestion.
Exactly.
When a network has the structural capability for 11.2 million TPS, a daily volume of 15,000 transactions means the utilization rate is so low, it's barely even registering on the network's capacity gauge.
It's a rounding error.
It really is.
Yeah.
If even 1%, just 1% of those 42 million active testnet users had migrated and generated even moderate activity, the 905,000 cumulative transaction number would have been processed within the first hour of the mainnet launch, not over 2 full months.
It seems like the technical structure is robust, the engineering is absolutely world-class, but the fundamental driving forces, the dApps, the real-world utility, the compelling reasons for those 42 million testnet users to actually show up and spend money are missing entirely.
It seems that way.
The highway is built, but the entire region it was meant to service is a ghost town.
That is the most accurate summary I've heard. The low usage implies a significant early-stage failure to translate a proven, incredible infrastructure into practical, user-driven market utility in this initial post-launch phase.
One final point on the post-launch data environment. The status of new testing. Are Keeta or its partners working feverishly to demonstrate higher sustained performance now that the mainnet is live? Are they trying to bridge this gap between their 11.2 million TPS claim and the 0.02 TXS reality?
Our sources confirm a strategic silence on this front.
Interesting.
There is no publicly available evidence of major new stress tests or benchmarking efforts conducted specifically since the September 2025 mainnet launch. The company appears focused on ecosystem development, perhaps recognizing the futility of new capacity tests when utilization is this low.
So we have no recent data points that suggest a higher capacity or sustained throughput than what ChainSpect is observing in real time.
None whatsoever.
The technical data available right now today is limited exclusively to ChainSpect's real-time monitoring of the minimal live chain activity.
Correct. The current verifiable speed is the speed of minimal adoption. 0.02 TXSB. This is the truth, and it is unambiguous because it is drawn from live operational data.
Hmm.
So we connect this to the bigger picture. What's fascinating here is the sheer, overwhelming magnitude of this performance discrepancy.
It's massive.
And we must now turn our attention to bridging this gap conceptually, understanding why these two seemingly impossible numbers, 11.2 million TPS and 0.02 TXS, can coexist in the same ecosystem.
Right. We have to move past the initial shock and really analyze the why. If the technology is genuinely world-beating, why is the utilization rate so incredibly low? Does the lack of utilization suggest some kind of inherent flaw in the network that only manifests in the real world?
And that is the essential critical question. The extreme difference, it reflects the chasm between controlled laboratory conditions, where demand is manufactured and perfectly optimized, and real-world adoption and demand, where transaction volume has to be organic, complex, and currently almost entirely non-existent.
So the 11.2 million TPS, proven with the Google Spanner team, that is a measure of potential infrastructure. The zero point 0.02 TSS is the measure of current market utility.
Exactly. Let's circle back to the definition of that synthetic test. The 11.2 million TPS test was designed for one thing: to confirm the network's structural capability to handle an immense, perfect flow of data.
The engine test.
The engine test. They proved the engine could handle Formula One speeds if you give it optimized fuel and a perfect track.
Yeah.
The validation was purely on cryptography and architectural integrity.
But real-world throughput, that's governed by entirely different constraints.
Precisely. Throughput post-launch is bottlenecked by real user demand, which is messy, it's unpredictable, and it requires real-world incentives. Our sources indicate that this low adoption could stem from several factors, all of which are common in nascent layer ones, but they're magnified here because of the scale of the expectation.
So what are the primary hypotheses for why those 42 million testnet users are just not showing up?
Well, the first and most obvious hypothesis is the failure to launch compelling dApps, the killer app problem.
The killer app problem. A blockchain, regardless of how fast it is merely an empty database until developers build applications that solve a real problem for a user. If the dApp ecosystem is nascent or non-existent or simply doesn't offer better utility than established chains, users have absolutely no incentive to migrate.
The 11.2 million TPS capability just doesn't matter at that point.
It's irrelevant, and the technical brilliance isn't enough to attract developers if the network effects, the users, the liquidity aren't there yet. It's a classic chicken and egg problem.
Right, yeah.
The second hypothesis relates to ecosystem funding or partnership delivery. Often, new L1s launch with promises of major institutional partnerships or large liquidity incentives to get things started.
To bootstrap the ecosystem.
Exactly, to
Yeah.
bootstrap it. If those funding rounds or major application migrations failed to materialize post-launch, the network would just remain empty. The excitement generated during the test phase was purely technical, not economic. This means the low usage, the 0.02 TXS, suggests that despite the world-beating technical capability, the structural ecosystem necessary to translate that capability into activity has yet to form.
It remains critically limited. The technical infrastructure is ready for global commerce, but the practical utility, the actual reason for a transaction to exist on Keeta instead of on Ethereum or Solana, has not been established at scale.
So the current operational reality just confirms that adoption is the bottleneck, not the network's processing ability.
100%. This highlights the ultimate lesson in the blockchain space. Technical success in a controlled environment does not automatically guarantee market dominance.
The initial hype created this belief in a massive latent user base thanks to those 42 million active testnet wallets.
It did. But the reality is that the network is barely processing above zero usage, which suggests one of two things.
Okay.
Either the testnet activity was highly synthetic, just incentivized activity that completely disappeared post-launch,
When the free money dried up.
when the free money dried up. Or the initial users simply found no viable dApps to actually use on the live chain.
Let's discuss the strategic implications of this lack of new testing since September. Why the silence on further benchmarking? What's the thinking there?
Well, one perspective is purely pragmatic. New testing would be redundant.
How so?
Why would you spend millions of dollars proving you can hit 11 million TPS again when your current operational throughput is 0.02 TXS? The current gap is so vast that any new test confirming capacity would only serve to highlight the massive absence of organic usage, which is the greater strategic problem they need to solve.
So running a new synthetic test now would simply be an expensive public admission that they haven't fixed the adoption problem.
Precisely. However, from a more critical perspective, the lack of new testing is also a missed opportunity.
In what way?
Post-launch tests, even small ones, can prove sustained high performance under real-world operational conditions. That includes interaction with live gateways and nodes that aren't perfectly optimized for a test. Stress testing against organic, albeit low, usage provides a different and very valuable type of validation.
They could have conducted smaller, targeted synthetic tests on the mainnet to prove stability under varying live load conditions. The fact that they haven't means that the market must base its valuation of Keeta's speed purely on two data points:
And those are.
that highly optimized June 2025 lab tests and the dismal current throughput of 0.02 TXS. There's nothing in between.
And this choice to remain silent on new benchmarking strategically reinforces our commitment to only using the verifiable data we have. The current operational truth is 0.02 TXS because the network simply isn't being used at scale. That figure is the verifiable speed of the network today.
The story of Keeta, then, is a fascinating cautionary tale. It's about the difference between infrastructure engineering and, I guess, market sociology.
That's a great way to put it.
You can build the fastest platform on Earth, but if the market doesn't need it or isn't incentivized to use it, that speed remains completely irrelevant.
The network capacity is proven, but the practical utility is not. And that lack of utility is what the 0.02 TXS figure represents.
We've taken a deep dive into the fastest claimed blockchain on the planet, analyzing the journey from laboratory triumph to, well, to operational reality. You now have the definitive, unambiguous numbers. So let's summarize the key takeaways so you can walk away with a crystal clear understanding of Keeta Network's current speed.
First, we confirm the maximum structural capability. Keeta proved, under controlled synthetic stress conditions, in partnership with Google Spanner and verified by ChainSpec, that its network architecture can handle an astounding 11.2 million transactions per second, TPS.
And that number is real.
It is real. This represents the absolute engineered potential of the platform. The highway is built.
Second, and this is the most critical point for any decision-making, we established the actual proven speed post-mainnet launch on September 22, 2025.
The number of cars on the highway.
Exactly. Due to severely limited real-world usage and volume, the network is currently operating at a sustained throughput of 0.02 transactions per second, TXS. That is a fact derived from third-party real-time monitoring of the live chain.
And we clarified what that 0.02 TXS actually means in practice. The network is processing less than one transaction every 45 seconds.
Which contrasts dramatically with the 400 millisecond finality and 0-second confirmation claims that defined its entire pre-launch hype.
Entirely. Furthermore, we noted that the total usage over 2 months, just 905,000 transactions, confirms that those 42 million active testnet wallets failed completely to translate into any meaningful mainnet adoption.
So the lesson here, if we simplify it down, is profound. The true speed of a network in operation is determined by two equally essential factors:
Its engineering integrity.
and its user demand. Keeta has proven the former in spades, demonstrating an incredible feat of decentralized engineering, but it currently lacks the latter almost entirely.
This creates a unique and, frankly, a significant disconnect in the decentralized space. We have a powerful multi-million lane highway that is essentially sitting empty, just waiting for traffic that hasn't arrived.
And that leads us to our final provocative thought for you to mull over.
Dylan.
We have established that the total transaction volume for Keeta in its first 2 months of mainnet operation was 905,000 transactions. For a platform with an incredible 11.2 million TPS capability, a capability that required immense engineering effort and resources to prove, what happens if we consider the monumental waste of bandwidth implied by this low usage?
It's an interesting thought experiment.
It is.
Imagine if tomorrow Keeta suddenly fixed its adoption problem. Let's say the network began running at just 10% of its claimed proven capacity.
Just 10%.
10% of 11.2 million TPS is 1.12 million transactions per second. At that rate, the entire 2 months of Keeta mainnet history, all 905,000 of those cumulative transactions, would be processed in less than 1 single second.
Less than 1 second. That staggering disconnect between engineering potential and market reality is why the adoption story is always the final chapter in the crypto space. And it's why you must keep relying on real-time analytics. We encourage you to keep a close eye on real-time analytics platforms like ChainSpec to watch for any change in that 0.02 TXS figure.
Because that number, not the 11.2 million, is the real story of Keeta Network right now.